thanks very much, guys. First of all, I'd like you just to introduce yourselves and tell me a little bit about yourselves.
My name is Cynthia Keatley, and I'm retired, and we just moved back to Edmonton from Ottawa, where we were for about 17 years. And so we're just sort of setting up house here and carrying on.
Isn't that great? And for you?
I'm retired also,
Uh-huh.
of course, from Ottawa. We originally lived in Edmonton, and we've been with Jerry, I think, since 1991 or 1992.
So how many years is that?
25.
That's, 25
now.
years.
Yeah,
Wow, eh?
So, and
That's
we
great.
stayed in touch with him, so now we're back. And
Yeah.
That's great. And your name is Pat,
Pat,
right?
yes.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, and when we lived in Ottawa, we always got invited to the cocktail parties, but couldn't go, so.
So
we're-
this time?
So now we can avail ourselves of that.
That's great.
At
So-
Christmas time.
So it's been you've known Jerry for about 25 years. How did you get to know him? How did you meet him?
through my father. My father had investments with Jerry and his predecessor.
Oh, yes.
So we came on board.
And so what made you choose, I know you were introduced by your father, so was that part and parcel of why you went with Jerry, or were there other reasons why you chose
Well,
Jerry?
part of it was Jerry's knowledge and his candor about very specific economic circumstances over the years.
So tell me a little bit about that knowledge. What do you mean by that? Is he,
Well, he seems to have a very good grasp on what's happening in the economy, and of course, specifically, of course, the U.S. economy, because it has such an effect on the Canadian business environment. So, I think that was one of the main things.
so his knowledge helped you become more informed as
Yes,
well?
yes.
Sorry, Cynthia, so tell me again how you came to know.
I didn't know Jerry until Pat and I got together, and then for a long time, I'm no financial genius. I mean, I'm just not. But Pat was sort of trying to help me out in investments and how to steer myself, with some of the things I had before we were married. And when we did move to Ottawa, we couldn't meet with Jerry, but Pat would often, when we came out, or when he came out to see family, would stop and see Jerry, and Jerry always made time for him to come in, because we didn't get to see him on a regular basis. And then when we moved back here, I was encouraged to come along, and I did, and I quite enjoy our get-togethers. I don't always understand it, but I find Jerry very comfortable to talk to, and he answers every question I ask, be it smart, silly, whatever. He can explain it to me in clear language so that I have a better grasp of what's going on in the world economy, and like Pat said, U.S., Canadian. So it helped me out a lot. So
Something interesting that the both of you are saying here is that you're talking about his knowledge, and so that he himself has that leadership role in terms of providing the information. But I also hear that he's down to earth with that knowledge. That he was open to hearing you ask questions.
Very much so. We're in a room where there's the picture with the money in it, all the different currencies, and we spoke about that once because I just had questions about it, and he was quite willing to answer that. And even before we came in today, when we were waiting, he was having us sign a couple documents and was explaining some implications from the U.S. on how it affects Canada and how we're not impacted, but Americans living in Canada are. And I didn't realize certain things about that. So he was very easy to talk to about that, and gave me lots of information on that.
So how does that affect your decisions on how you invest in your money?
You know what, I don't know. I leave all the big decisions up to him.
But in terms of, does that allow you then to maybe make, feeling like you're more informed and you know why
Yes.
you're doing something?
Yes, and he's very, he's very easy to talk to. And we come in for maybe what's probably supposed to be a half-hour meeting, and I can take up a lot of his time. So, and he's very good about that.
So that patience then that he has with that,
Mhm.
and it sounds like he's got a sincere desire to transfer that
Mhm.
expertise to you.
Yeah, that's what I think. How about you?
Well, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. And-
He's very good at that.
And so there's that
He-
communication
yes,
piece.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
very good at explaining things that I sort of basically know, but it's very hard to put it in the right kind of words, and he does a very good job at doing that.
As a result of that, how does that help you make decisions?
Well, I think it's, part of it is just all the information that he can give you about the circumstances around the world or in the US or in Canada, and what might play out in the short term and the long term, related to whether it be currency fluctuation or gold or any of the prime stocks.
And so in that sense, although he certainly provides you the information, I'm also getting the sense that you feel that you're still in charge, though.
Yes.
How so?
Well, because ultimately we make the decisions, and he gives us all of the sort of alternatives, and reminds us of our risk level at some times, which helps us, I think, steer us to good decisions.
So it sounds like in the move back here that you're starting into maybe different stage. How is your financial portfolio affecting you in terms of your lifestyle?
It hasn't really affected us. We are, I don't think, has it? We're
You're still spending?
That's true. That's true. But I don't see a difference other than the fact that we are retired. And I guess when you're retired, you spend your money differently, you know, and so, but we go out when we want to go out, we do what we want to do, we built a home here, you know, so, and we came back for family, but nothing really has changed. We still do what we need to, and so I don't think we've been impacted.
Yeah, we feel comfortable with what we have as a portfolio, and it makes it much easier to spend money when you need to, or sometimes when you don't need to.
Which is even more fun.
Yeah.
That's right.
But what I'm hearing though is it sounds like you feel that you have control over your finances,
Yeah.
that then gives you freedom
Yes.
to make your own lifestyle choices.
Exactly.
Absolutely. We're savers, always have been, and so I guess we were forward-thinking in that when we were younger, thinking about the future, and so it's paid off for us.
And has that had any other impacts in terms of, say, family, where your maybe extended family knows that you're secure and the burden is off them, or is there anything like that?
Yeah, they were worried when we moved back.
How so?
No.
Did she get
but
too
then,
close?
But then they realized that if we're building a new house, we probably have
We're
enough
probably
money to look
okay.
after ourselves.
Right.
That goes for siblings and offspring.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And so when you were looking at, when you look at financial planning, how does Lifetrek compare to other choices you might have?
That's a good question. It's been such a long time since I actually looked at any alternative except Lifetrek. So
Is that
yeah,
right?
yes.
So what does that say about Lifetrek for you?
Well, we're very confident in what Jerry's doing for us. That's
Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
that trust.
yes, that's trust.
It sounds like it's complete trust.
Close.
Yeah. Isn't that fantastic?
Well, I would think that you have to have trust in somebody, or you would be constantly, if you didn't trust them, you'd be moving it from here to there or doing it yourself. And so why have somebody if you think you can do better? I don't think most people would, well, I don't know, I don't think Jerry steers us wrong. You know, and I, like I say, I don't know a lot about it. I count on Pat and Jerry to either explain it to me or go over it, so.
And after I try to explain it, then Jerry explains it in terms that she can understand.
Yeah.
So it,
Yeah.
so it,
He's a very, very good translator.
He dumbs it down.
well, let me ask you that. Is he dumbing it down or is he just clarifying it in simple
No,
terms?
I don't think he dumbs it down, but he does speak, to me at least, in language that I can understand. And so if I have a question and I can be like, are you kidding me about certain stuff? And he'll say, no, I'm not, you know, type of thing. So I find that when I leave here, even though we've been here 2 hours or whatever it might be, I feel like I'm a little more educated.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And so in that sense, you know, if anything should call one of you away, whether it's, you know, a trip or something on business or a family matter, then you know you've, you know, I guess it gives you a little bit of security knowing you've got Jerry as that backup.
Yes, because I truly, unless I learn more along the way, don't have the knowledge that Pat has,
Mhm.
and so I would certainly rely on Jerry if something were to ever happen.
Mm-hmm. That's important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what impact is that? I mean, I'm hearing the financial impact that you know, it gives you some freedom to make your own choices
Mhm.
to save or spend. But how does that impact other parts of your lives?
What do you mean, other part?
Meaning,
Like,
well, when you're, you know, just, I'm trying not to put words in your
oh
mouth,
no,
but it's more, you know, when you're financially secure, yes, obviously then you can spend money. But what does that mean in terms of, say, something like stress level or health? Like, how does that, what are the secondary impacts of that, or
no stress.
no stress?
You read always the financial sections in
Yes.
the paper, always. Then he
And
will.
then if I get stressed out, I phone Jerry.
Okay.
Then,
Right.
but he'll read a lot of times, and I don't know if it's on the weekend, but they'll have situations in the paper about this man and woman, and whoever it might be, and they give you the situation that they're in and how perhaps they can get out from under.
Right.
And Pat will say, I think you need to read this article. And
Mhm.
it's true, there's an awful lot of people out there who don't think ahead. And I feel badly for people who now have to support their adult children, because I don't think that frees them up. And we don't have any of those problems. And
Mhm.
there's an awful lot of people out there who haven't thought about retirement and how it will impact them.
Right. Right.
No.
So I'm hearing you're secure, but there's something more that I'm reading from the two of you, and it's just, it sounds like you're starting to have fun.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that's what I'm picking up.
that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You work for that all your life.
Yeah.
All your work life, you work to be happy and free of debt, or almost free, and then enjoy your life. That's what you work for, those 25 or 35
Right.
years.
And so what I'm hearing is Lifetrek partners with you in that
Mhm.
piece of your
Yes.
life.
Mhm.
Cool. And so, just out of curiosity, it sounds like you say you've been with Jerry for 25 years. Got any stories you'd like to share of, you know, when you were asked to do this?
He told me I had to do all the talking because I made the appointment. So how have I done so far?
You're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you're doing great too.
Yeah, good.
Oh, just curious
Yeah.
of whether there
She
was
almost didn't come when I said that.
Aw.
Yeah.
No, just curious if, you know, was there a special occasion or that you thought of or that comes to mind when you think about Jerry? You're talking about when you were away, and was there anything while you were away that you had to call him on, or?
I think more it's things, what I remember about Jerry coming in to see him a number of times is some things in his, not necessarily his personal life, but his family life, about things that he's done related to photography and tools that he buys, which is sort of that blue thing versus the pink thing. That's about the only time we get to talk, Jerry and I, is, but various things that he's built, but nothing really humorous, because he's never shared his accidents with his tools. I always check to make sure he's got all his fingers and things like that.
Yeah, but there's something that comes out of even talking about him that way. What I'm hearing is you can connect to him on a personal level too.
Yes.
So there's a human quality there.
Yes, definitely.
So you're saying that it's been a long time since you've even looked at other financial institutions. So when you see the advertisements on the radio or the television about the financial institutions and what they can do, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I use a very famous term. It's blah 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 money, blah 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 money.
Right.
From the old dog jokes, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
No, we did have. He gave me some money to invest with the TD, and said, "Go ahead, get your feet wet," and all of that. But I learned my lesson.
She was aghast.
Yeah, I really was.
Well, that's a good story. I'd
Yeah,
love to hear. What
yeah.
was the experience?
Well, every time I went into the bank, this was in Ottawa, and I had certain dollars to work with. Nothing exorbitant, but a chunk of change that I could invest. And he said, "Why don't you do this?" So first time I went in, I got a really nice gentleman, and I think he was like about
11.
They look 11. They all look 11 now.
Yeah.
But he seemed to steer me the right way, and if I did this, I would get this percentage or that percentage, and by that time, percentages were not high. And so I dealt with him, and then, of course, the men seemed to move up in the financial institutions quicker than the women, and so he was made a manager and moved on. So I then got, when things came due, I always staggered them, so they were coming due at different times. And I got a young lady. And she was trying to steer me toward things like utilities. I used to just put them into GICs, things like that. But she was sort of saying, "Well, why don't you take a chance?" And so I did with some. Went into this, two or three things. And when they came due, I went in, and again, it was somebody new, so we really didn't have any kind of a consistent person who was dealing with us, because they all seemed to move and change, and so there was really no rapport, or where you go in every year and see the same individual. And this young gentleman sort of said, "Well, you didn't make any money." And I said, "What are you talking about? Like,
Are you kidding?
I just about hit the roof."
Yeah.
And I said, "Why not?" "Well, because it was, this utility or this telephone company or this whatever." And I didn't understand it. And I felt that I'd been gypped for 2 years, because I probably left it in. I got no return on my money and learned my lesson.
But at least you got your money back.
Yeah, I got the initial amount.
There's always something positive.
I guess, but I was, that was a lesson learned, not to do anything like that before you're a little more savvy about what's going on.
And yet but what I'm also hearing is you don't feel you need to be when you're working because you have the partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
You have
I
trust.
yeah, we have trust with Jerry. I always trust Pat, because I know he'll make the right decisions. But I did this on my own, which was the point of the exercise. And it was, no, I was really, I have a tendency to go, and I was really angry. But it is what it is, and it wasn't explained to me that way.
Yeah.
So it wasn't explained that I might not get any return. It was that these were good options for me.
So it was that education piece that may have been missing because
Right.
Yep.
there wasn't the consistency of
Yes.
like you were saying, here you've had the same person who knows you,
That's right,
who speaks to the personal aspects.
Yeah.
You
exactly.
connect with on a personal level.
Right.
A little different than that experience.
Yes, and so, I mean, and I don't know if it's like that with all financial institutions, but people move. They
Mhm.
move around, so unless you can find somebody who's going to stay in that particular branch or whatever, you're never forming any kind of a camaraderie or a rapport with your financial person, and so it's always getting shoved from one person to the next.
And the impact of that, of
Oh, I
knowing
made the
that,
wrong decision. I was hoping to get a little return on my money, but I didn't.
that may be
so.
an unsupported decision.
Right.
Not so much a wrong one.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
Anything you want to make sure, people know about this experience that you've had and what people should know about Jerry and Tracy and Lifetrek?
you? No, I think he's been, for me, it's been a real learning experience, and I've enjoyed it. And so when we come, I do ask lots of questions, and I'm sure they drive you crazy, but I've learned
That's
a
great.
lot.
Yeah.
We have a joke about how many questions she can ask.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Yeah, well then.
And sometimes she uses up the first one by saying, can I ask a question?
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
So,
one.
Yeah, that's exactly. Used it today.
No more than 5 a day.
Yeah. No, and I think, you articulate it well. What I'm hearing is there's education, but there's, I think, wrapped up in all of that, to put a word out,
Yeah,
leadership,
right. Yeah.
Well, we had friends many years ago
Mhm.
who came into an inheritance
Mhm.
and decided to go with Jerry. And they pulled out, I think, within a year or two, because they didn't feel they were making money the way, fast enough, I guess.
Mhm.
And so I have no idea what happened. I mean, we don't discuss that kind of thing,
All I know is the next company they sued because they weren't making any money.
Yeah, so,
So-
you have to wait, you're in for the long haul. It's not just a weekly or a 2-weekly or a
Yes.
monthly thing. And they
Right.
weren't prepared to wait and
Yeah.
see
Right.
things grow and.
After
and-
25 years, I guess we can say we've been on a journey.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's a great way
Yeah.
to put it. Interesting.
yeah.
Beautifully done. Thank you.
Thank you.
And is there? And I think you've really captured, I think, what you feel is your experience with Jerry and what sets him apart, what sets Lifetrek apart.
Yes.
Really
And
cool.
although it's a small thing, and it is, in the grand scheme of things, it's a small thing. But he does, at Christmas time, have a very nice function for all of his people.
Mhm.
And it's his way of saying thank you. And
Mhm.
I don't know if that happens in other institutions, but it's just a nice thing to do. And, it's his way of being, upfront with you and saying, we're happy to have you on board, and here's our thank you. And it's just a nice little evening of visiting and cocktails or whatever, and it's nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Super. Thank you.